Welcome to Personal Injury Claims Explained by Foyle Legal, your trusted source for personal injury claims in Western Australia. Each week, we simplify complex legal issues, from motor vehicle accidents to workplace injuries, so you can confidently navigate your rights and secure the compensation you deserve.
All right, so let's jump into workers' comp in WA today.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking specifically at what happens when you've been injured on the job.
Sounds good.
So if you've been hurt at work, you're probably wondering,
Yeah.
what are my rights?
Yeah.
What do I even do now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today.
Cool.
We've got two really interesting sources to help us unpack this.
Okay.
One is a blog post from Foyle Legal,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is a really interesting case from the WA District Court.
Great.
It's 2022 WADC 191.
All right.
So by the end of this deep dive, I hope you'll have a better understanding of how pre-existing conditions can affect your claim, what employer liability means, and how compensation is actually calculated in these cases.
Yeah, that's a really important area, I think.
Yeah.
That a lot of people have questions about.
And they get confused by.
Yeah, and there are a lot of misconceptions out there.
Exactly.
About pre-existing conditions and whether you can or can't claim.
Yeah, and a lot of people just assume that
Right.
if they already had a problem,
Yeah.
then they can't claim anything.
Exactly.
But the case that we're going to be looking at today really shows that that's not always the case.
It's a really good example.
Yeah, so the case involves this woman, we'll call her injured worker J.
Okay.
She was 37 years old, working as a cleaning supervisor.
Okay.
And she had a bit of a history of hip problems.
Oh.
Interesting. It wasn't like super debilitating or anything.
Right.
But it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where the details of her job are important.
Yeah.
Because, if she was just working at a desk,
Right.
just sitting down all day, it might be a different story.
Exactly.
But as a supervisor,
Yeah.
there was a physical component to her work.
Right.
So she's at this glass manufacturing company, and she's walking down this narrow alleyway
Okay.
to get to the cleaning room.
Uh-huh.
And they had some construction going on at the site at the same time,
Oh
she falls into this unguarded hole
no.
about a foot deep,
Oh, wow.
and she lands right on her left buttock.
Ouch.
So you can imagine
Yeah.
the force of that impact.
Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
And initially, she felt it in her lower back and ankle, and there was some pain in her left groin, too.
Okay.
So understandably, her first thought wasn't, oh, no, my pre-existing hip condition.
Right.
Right.
It's probably the last thing on her mind.
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
point.
But as time went on, it became clear that the fall had actually aggravated that existing hip problem.
Oh, okay.
So she ended up getting a bone scan, and it showed that the primary injury from the fall was actually to her hip,
Interesting.
not just her back or her ankle.
Wow.
And that's when things really started to go downhill for her.
Yeah, so how did that manifest? Like, how
Oh.
does that affect her work?
She tried to push through,
Okay.
and even took on lighter duties.
Yeah,
But even that became too much.
I see.
And eventually she was actually retrenched from her job.
So was that because of the injury, or?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The court actually found that it wasn't directly because of the injury.
Oh, wow.
Her employer was restructuring,
Right.
and they needed someone with different qualifications.
Okay.
However, it's pretty clear that the injury really limited her job options moving forward.
Yeah, of course.
So even though she wasn't fired specifically because of her injury,
Right.
it definitely had a huge impact on her ability to work and find new employment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a really important point for our listeners,
Yeah.
because even if you weren't let go specifically because of the injury,
Mm-hmm.
if it's affecting your ability to work,
Yeah,
that's a huge factor
exactly.
in a comp claim.
Right. And that's what's so interesting about injured worker J's case, is that it really tackles this head on.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So the court actually awarded injured worker J a total of $160,265.50.
Wow.
And when you break down that figure, it really highlights what work is designed to cover.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Yeah.
What went into that $160,265.50?
Well, the biggest chunk was $110,000 for lost earning capacity.
Okay.
And that's an important distinction, because this wasn't just about her wages at the time of the injury.
Right.
The court actually considered, her age, her skills, her career path, and how this injury would impact her future earning potential.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just about, the immediate loss of income.
Yeah.
It's about the potential that she's lost because of this injury.
Right. And she's only 37, so that's a huge
Exactly.
chunk of her, working life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so we've got $110,000 for lost earning capacity. What else was included?
Okay, so she also received $5,460 for the help she needed from family
Okay.
with everyday tasks like housework and, getting around. So
Oh.
this recognizes the burden that's placed on loved
Yeah.
ones who often have to step in to help.
Yeah, it's not just the injured person that suffers. It's their whole family
Right.
and their friends.
Yeah, it has a ripple effect.
Yeah, for sure.
So that $5,460 acknowledges those real costs, both the time and effort
Right.
that families put in.
Okay, so we've got lost earning capacity. We've got help from family. Was there anything else?
Yes. So there was also $1,000 for future medical expenses.
Okay.
And this was specifically because the injury accelerated her need for hip replacements,
Right.
which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Hip replacements have a limited lifespan, so she's likely to need more of them over her lifetime.
Right.
And she'll probably need them sooner than she would have otherwise.
Because of the injury.
Exactly.
So even though the surgery might seem to fix the problem,
Right.
it's not always a one-and-done thing.
It's not a cure-all.
Right, and recognizes that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And takes that into account. Okay, so we've got, the physical injuries, the lost wages, the impact on her family.
Yeah.
What about the non-physical impacts, like, the pain and suffering?
Well, that's where the final $40,000 comes in.
Oh, wow.
That was awarded for pain and suffering, acknowledging the physical and emotional toll of the injury, the limitations that she faces now, and the impact on her overall quality of life.
That's a significant amount.
It is.
$40,000.
Yeah, it shows that the court takes pain and suffering seriously.
Yeah.
It's not just about physical healing, it's about the whole person.
The whole person and how this has affected their life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, obviously every case is different.
Of course.
But this really gives you an idea
Yeah.
of the scope of what workers' comp can cover.
Absolutely. And a key factor in her success was the strong medical evidence that she had.
Okay.
She consulted multiple specialists.
Right.
And their opinions, were really crucial in proving the link between the fall and her hip condition.
So for our listeners out there who have been injured at work, what's the takeaway here?
I'd say the big takeaway is don't just try to tough it out.
Yeah.
See a doctor as soon as possible.
Right.
And document everything.
Okay.
Your symptoms, the treatments that you receive, how this injury is impacting your daily life.
So basically create a paper trail
Exactly.
that connects your work incident to your condition.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I imagine it matters what kind of doctor you see too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you need someone who understands workers' comp
Yes.
and can explain how the incident led to your current state.
You're exactly right. You want medical professionals who can provide really clear and concise reports that the court will actually understand.
And it's not just about physical injuries either, right?
No, not at all.
If you're dealing with like anxiety or depression or PTSD as a result of the injury or even the stress of the whole comp process, that needs to be documented too.
Absolutely. Your mental well-being is just as important as
Yeah.
your physical health, and it can be a big part of a workers' comp claim.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about injured the worker Jay's case.
Yeah.
But there's another important aspect that her situation highlights,
Okay.
and that's employer liability.
Right.
So she actually sued multiple parties,
She did.
including some subcontractors
Yeah.
that were involved in the construction work at the site.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just her direct employer that was held responsible.
Right. It was the subcontractors who created that hazard.
Yeah.
They also shared some liability.
So even if you work for one company,
Yeah.
if your injury involves other companies or contractors,
right.
they could be held accountable too.
Exactly. And that's why having, expert legal representation can be so valuable.
Okay.
Because they can help you identify all those potentially liable parties and build a stronger case for compensation.
Okay, well, speaking of legal representation,
Yeah.
this whole process seems incredibly complex.
It can be.
Injured worker Jay's case involved a lot of back and forth, different medical opinions,
Yeah.
legal procedures.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot to handle on your own,
It is.
especially when you're already dealing with an injury and the stress of that.
Absolutely.
It can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, it definitely can.
So what would you say to someone who's maybe on the fence about whether they should talk to a lawyer?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is that workers' compensation law, it's complicated.
Yeah,
And the system itself can be really hard to navigate on your own.
right.
So an experienced lawyer can guide you through the process. They can protect your rights and really help you build the strongest possible case.
Especially when you've got all these different parties involved. Like,
Yeah.
in injured worker J's case.
Absolutely. And I think early intervention is key.
Okay.
The sooner you get legal advice, the better.
Right, so don't wait.
Exactly. There are strict time limits for filing a claim.
Mm-hmm.
And the more evidence you gather early on,
Yeah.
the stronger your case will be.
And a lawyer can help you avoid some of the common pitfalls
Exactly.
that people make.
Yeah, a lot of people make mistakes that can really jeopardize their claim,
So what about the cost?
right?
I mean, I know that's a big concern for a lot of people.
It's a valid concern, but a lot of personal injury lawyers, including those at Foyle Legal,
Okay.
they work on a no-win, no-fee basis.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So basically it means that you only pay legal fees if they win your case.
Oh, okay.
So it takes a lot of the financial pressure off.
So you're not taking on any extra risk
Exactly.
by talking to a lawyer.
That's right.
So what should someone look for when they're choosing a lawyer for a workers' comp case?
Well, first and foremost, you want someone who specializes in this area of law.
Okay.
Workers' comp is a niche field.
Yeah.
So you need an expert who really understands the ins and outs of the system here in WA.
Okay.
So look for someone with a proven track record of success, someone who's handled cases similar to yours.
So not just any lawyer will do.
No, you want someone with specific expertise.
Right.
Read online reviews, look for testimonials, and don't hesitate to ask for case studies or examples of their previous work.
Yeah, you want to see what they've actually done.
Exactly.
And you want to feel comfortable with them, right?
Absolutely. You want someone you feel confident in, someone who you believe will really fight for your best interests.
It's like finding a good doctor.
It is.
You want someone who specializes in what you need.
Yeah.
And who you trust.
Exactly.
And speaking of good lawyers,
yeah.
Foyle Legal has a great reputation in this area, right?
They do. They're really well known for their expertise in personal injury compensation,
Okay.
including workers' comp claims.
Great.
And they offer a free initial consultation.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you can discuss your case with them, get their professional opinion without any obligation.
So you really have nothing to lose.
Exactly. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Understanding your rights and your options. That's the first step towards getting the support and compensation you deserve.
So to bring it all back to our main point,
Yeah.
if you've been injured at work, even if you have a pre-existing condition, don't just assume you're not entitled to compensation.
Exactly.
Injured worker J's case proves that it is possible to get a significant settlement,
Right.
even when things seem complicated.
That's right. The key is to seek professional help early on, gather that strong medical evidence, and really build a solid case.
Yeah, with the help of an experienced lawyer.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. If injured worker J hadn't reached out for legal help,
Yeah.
she might be in a very different situation right now.
Absolutely. She could be struggling financially, dealing with ongoing pain and limitations,
Right.
and feeling like she didn't get the justice she deserved.
So the message here is don't go through this alone.
Exactly.
There are resources available. There are people who can help.
Yep.
And there is hope for a positive outcome.
Absolutely.
So if you've been injured at work in WA, remember what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
Seek medical attention, document everything, and reach out to a legal expert.
Yeah. Like Foyle Legal.
They can really help you navigate this complex system
Yeah.
and fight for the best possible outcome for you.
Well, we hope this deep dive into workers' comp has been helpful
Yeah,
and empowering for
I
you.
hope so.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
Absolutely not.
Take care of yourselves and stay informed.
Great advice.
Thanks for tuning in to Personal Injury Claims explained by Foyle Legal. Remember, this podcast is for informational purposes and isn't legal advice. For advice specific to your situation, visit us at Foyle Legal. And don't forget to subscribe or leave a review.